There are people in this world who seem larger than life. People who walk into a room, or in this case, into your living room every single evening, and make you feel like everything is under control. Like no matter how chaotic the world becomes, someone steady and intelligent is watching over it, making sense of it all, and reporting back to you with clarity and grace. For millions of Americans, Norah O'Donnell was that person. Night after night, for years on end, she sat behind the anchor desk at CBS Evening News and delivered the day's most important stories with the kind of quiet authority that can only come from decades of hard-earned experience. She wasn't just reading a teleprompter. She was doing journalism, real, serious, consequential journalism, and doing it at the highest possible level. But on January 23rd, 2025, something that tens of millions of loyal viewers never expected actually happened. Norah O'Donnell anchored the CBS Evening News for the very last time, closing out a remarkable 5-year run as anchor and managing editor of the broadcast. The studio fell quiet in a way it rarely does. The cameras captured something raw and genuine. A woman who had given everything to a broadcast, to a network, and to the American public, stepping away from the desk that had defined a significant chapter of her life. It was emotional. It was dignified. And for anyone who had been following Norah O'Donnell's career closely, it was also deeply meaningful, because getting to that final broadcast had required far more than just professional dedication. It had required surviving something terrifying. To truly understand the weight of Norah O'Donnell's departure from the anchor desk, you first have to understand how much of herself she poured into journalism over the course of her career. This was not someone who stumbled into broadcasting or coasted on charm and good looks. Born on January 23, 1974, in Washington, D.C., O'Donnell is the daughter of Francis Lawrence O'Donnell, a medical doctor and United States Army officer, and Noreen Bernadette O'Kane, whose family roots stretch back to Derry, Belfast, and County Donegal in Ireland. Her background was one of discipline, public service, and a deep connection to history, all qualities that would come to define her journalism. When she was 10 years old, her family moved to Seoul, South Korea, where they lived at Yongsan Garrison as her father fulfilled a military assignment. Even as an elementary school student, she began her broadcasting career by recording English lessons for the Korean Educational Development Institute. It is almost poetic, looking back, a young girl in a foreign country, speaking into a camera, unknowingly practicing for the life that lay ahead of her. After returning to the United States, she attended Georgetown University, where she earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in philosophy in 1995 and later a Master of Arts degree in liberal studies in 2003. Her entry into professional journalism was equally disciplined. She began as a staff writer for Roll Call, covering Congress, before spending 12 years across NBC networks as a commentator for The Today Show, chief Washington correspondent for MSNBC, and a White House correspondent for NBC News. Every step of that journey sharpened her skills, widened her network of sources, and built the kind of credibility that cannot be manufactured or rushed. By the time she made the move to CBS, she was one of the most respected names in American broadcast journalism. She became co-anchor of CBS This Morning in fall 2012, and in May 2019, CBS News President Susan Zirinsky announced that O'Donnell had been named anchor and managing editor of the CBS Evening News, beginning on July 15, 2019. She was only the third woman in history to anchor that program, following Connie Chung and Katie Couric, a milestone that meant something not just to her personally, but to every young woman who had ever dreamed of sitting in that chair. The achievement was extraordinary. The journey to get there, however, had not been without its dark and frightening detours. We often talk about defining moments in people's lives, the moments that draw a clear line between before and after. For Norah O'Donnell, that line was drawn not in a television studio, not during a breaking news broadcast, but in a quiet, ordinary moment while she was going about her daily life. She had been holiday shopping right after Thanksgiving when her phone rang, and her dermatologist was on the other end of the line with the results of a recent biopsy. In an instant, the noise of the crowd around her, the bustle of the holiday season, all of it dissolved. She later wrote about the experience in a personal essay, describing how she made her way through the Black Friday crowds toward the exit with her mind reeling and her chest tightening, tears running down her face, feeling trapped and unable to understand how this could have happened to her. The diagnosis was melanoma, specifically melanoma in situ on her upper back, meaning the cancer was contained to the epidermis and had not yet spread to the dermis or beyond. The words in situ were the difference between manageable and catastrophic, but even a contained diagnosis of melanoma carries weight that no one is ever fully prepared for. O'Donnell had grown up in San Antonio, where summer temperatures regularly push past 100 degrees, spending hours in pools without sunscreen. And in high school, she had even visited tanning salons, including before prom. She had never connected those youthful habits to the kind of serious health consequence that was now staring her in the face. None of us do when we are young. We feel invincible. The sun feels like a friend, not a threat. And then, years later, the bill comes due in ways we never anticipated. O'Donnell told People magazine that she had been going to her dermatologist for yearly skin checks, but had allowed 2 years to pass between visits. During the appointment she finally scheduled, her doctor identified 2 spots on her skin that required further examination. That small decision, finally making the overdue appointment, almost certainly saved her life. Her dermatologist, Dr. Elizabeth Hale of NYU Langone Medical Center, later confirmed that the melanoma had been caught at the earliest possible stage, making it totally curable, and that early detection had been the key factor. Surgery followed quickly. Doctors removed a 3-inch-long piece of skin from the upper left corner of her back to eliminate the cancer entirely. The procedure left a scar, a permanent physical reminder of what had happened and how close things could have gone differently. But O'Donnell did not hide that scar. In the months that followed, she did something that perhaps surprised people who had only ever seen her as a composed, controlled news anchor. She opened up. She talked about the fear, the shock, and the emotional aftermath. In an essay published in Good Housekeeping, she reflected on the moment of diagnosis, writing about questioning whether it was somehow her fault and why she had waited to schedule her checkup. She told People magazine, "It was really a wake-up call to me. My husband was very concerned. My kids are really worried." Those words carry enormous honesty. This was not a woman performing bravery for a camera. This was a mother, a wife, and a professional grappling with the sudden, disorienting reality of her own vulnerability. Since her diagnosis, O'Donnell has become a dedicated skincare advocate, consistently encouraging others, especially women, to schedule regular dermatological checkups and take sun protection seriously. She went on CBS This Morning to discuss the diagnosis live with her dermatologist, pointing out that there are no official recommendations for how often people should get skin checks, but that annual visits are strongly advised. She posted on social media about Melanoma Awareness Month, shared her story in national publications, and spoke on television with the same directness she brought to every other subject she covered. Early detection, she repeated again and again, saves lives. In her case, it had saved hers. What viewers at home almost never see is the crushing weight of what it actually takes to deliver the evening news every single night. The calm face on the screen represents hours of preparation, dozens of editorial decisions, constant communication with producers and correspondents, and a level of mental stamina that few professions demand. Norah O'Donnell carried all of that, and she carried it for years. During her tenure, O'Donnell relocated the CBS Evening News to Washington, D.C., a significant logistical and editorial decision, and used the program as a platform for serious investigative journalism, including reports on sexual assault in the military that helped drive congressional action. She anchored live from the deck of the USS Nimitz while it was operating in the South China Sea. She sat across from Pope Francis for a global exclusive interview. She pressed Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman about the assassination of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. These were not soft interviews. They were the kind of conversations that require not just courage, but an extraordinary depth of preparation and professional confidence. In conversations about her career, O'Donnell openly acknowledged that the demands of the job sometimes triggered anxiety, and that the pressures of the industry had led her to seek therapy. In a media landscape where powerful women are still often expected to project constant strength without ever showing the cracks, that kind of candor was quietly remarkable. She was telling the truth in the same way she had always told it, directly and without apology. Wendy McMahon, president and CEO of CBS News, described O'Donnell's superpower as her ability to secure and then masterfully deliver unparalleled interviews and stories that set the news cycle and capture the cultural zeitgeist, pointing to her exclusive interview with Pope Francis and her conversations with every living president as examples of that extraordinary access. That kind of access does not come easily or accidentally. It is the product of years of relationship building, editorial integrity, and a reputation for fairness that anchors either earn or don't. In July 2024, Norah O'Donnell made an announcement that sent ripples through the broadcast news world. She stated in a memo to staff, "After this year's election, I've decided I will be leaving my role as anchor and managing editor of the CBS Evening News to take on a new position at the network." For viewers who had come to rely on her presence, it landed with a particular kind of weight. In her own words, O'Donnell explained, "It's time to do something different. This presidential election will be my 7th as a journalist. And for many of us in this business, we tend to look at our careers in terms of these milestone events. 7 presidential elections as a working journalist. Think about what that means. 7 cycles of the most consequential political events in American democracy, each requiring enormous preparation, travel, and the kind of sustained focus that eventually, no matter how dedicated you are, demands a recalibration." She also made clear that her commitment to CBS News was not ending. She announced that she had made a long-term commitment to the network and would continue to contribute to evening news and all broadcasts, including 60 Minutes. This was not a retirement. It was a redefinition. A woman who had survived a cancer diagnosis, navigated years of professional scrutiny, managed the demands of anchoring one of America's most storied newscasts, and raised 3 children alongside her husband, restaurateur Jeff Tracy, was choosing to use her remaining professional years on her own terms. McMahon described O'Donnell's new role as giving her the opportunity to contribute across CBS and Paramount, allowing viewers to see more of the groundbreaking stories and interviews that had been the hallmark of her career. Rather than fighting for nightly airtime in a media environment that is rapidly shifting towards streaming and digital platforms, O'Donnell was positioning herself to do the work she has